Hey, how are you guys? So today is Wednesday, the 22nd of January, 2 days into a new presidency, which we're not going to talk about today, but the world is going to be much different in a couple months it is now. Maybe not in your personal life, but it'll probably be different in the world, whether you like it or not. This is just how it is with different policies and whatnot. But I want to get up and talk about what's the criteria of um, being in the Hall of Fame or unanimous, which I just don't understand. Like, obviously, Hall of Fame's a Hall of Fame. To me, it's the best players of your time. When you were playing, you were a great player in sports. Um, it's an ego boost, but unanimous. So yesterday, C. Sabathia went to the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to him. Um, Mainly known for his for playing for the Yankees, as well as playing for Cleveland. He was a Cy Young Award in 2007 for the Indians. And in '08, his half season in Milwaukee was dominant. Basically, you could say he carried the Brewers to the playoffs that year. So he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. But the next player was Ichiro. Ichiro was one vote away from being unanimous, which to me is kind of interesting in the standpoint that how is he not unanimous and only one player now in the history of baseball, Mariano Rivera, is the only unanimous MVP player ever. So a couple years ago, Derek Jeter was up for the Hall of Fame, and somebody asked, "Does Derek Jeter deserve to be unanimous Hall of Famer?" And I said, "What kind of question is that? Because the other guys weren't. That doesn't mean he doesn't deserve." And people would say there are other players better than Derek Jeter, and that's fine. I agree with that statement, but that's like, of course, he deserves to be unanimous. Everyone who's like an easy Hall of Famer, that's a unanimous Hall of Famer. If you look at like a pineapple on a table, you ask 100 people, what is that? It's a pineapple. Unanimous is everyone agrees that that's a pineapple. Carrot, that's a carrot. What are you talking about? So when people say stuff like that and say, well, he doesn't deserve to be unanimous because the other guy wasn't unanimous. Not you ask 100 people who know a lick about baseball, know Derek Jeter, Ichiro Suzuki now is a Hall of Famer. So I have a feeling that these writers, and I know Ichiro is going to live on and move on and not really care. And Derek Jeter doesn't care either way at all because at the end of the day, Derek Jeter is a Hall of Famer. And Ichiro Suzuki's in the Hall of Fame. But I feel like these writers have something going on that they have a thing where they tell one writer it's a plot to tell one writer you be the guy, not vote. I I could be wrong, but this is just what it sounds like. This is pathetic, and it's insanity. It's insanity that like you can't agree with it, and like you look at other Hall of Fames, like in basketball. I'm not sure if they even announced the guy was unanimous or not because I think that everybody's like unanimous, and you could say, well, there's flaws in basketball that everyone goes to the Hall of Fame and there are flaws in football for different reasons and different criterias that I'll get to in a second. But like Steve Nash, Jason Kidd were great point guards. Nobody ever said they were the best players of their time, or not many people said that. Not many, and very few people think that they're of the best players ever. But everyone knows they're Hall of Famers. Paul Pierce went to the Hall of Fame. No one even thinks that Paul Pierce was the best or of the best players to ever play, but I bet you he was unanimous because everyone understands that's a Hall of Famer. We understand Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, etc. were Hall of Famers. They weren't the best players and the best players of the top five players in the league at the time. They weren't, and they're not even like in the top 10 when we talk about the top 10 players ever. We don't go, oh, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Steve Nash, no, but we know they're Hall of Famers. And I think like baseball is just pathetic. Like because we can't put this guy unanimous, we have to like send a message that we're still empower these writers. Writers, you're talking for us, and now you make us look silly. And the other sport is football. I just don't understand like football when they talk about the story of the game. Like, what the flip does that even mean? Like, Eli Manning's going to go to Hall of Fame for two reasons. One is he's part of a very powerful family that threw him out of San Diego because the Spanos family wasn't a good ownership, whatever, which was insane. I'm not saying they're great owners, but such a stupid excuse. And then like that team, like the Chargers, I believe they had the number one pick that year, but they were in the playoffs pretty frequently those years, if I'm not mistaken. And they had like this young Drew Brees, who was a good quarterback at the time, wasn't the guy in New Orleans, and obviously they wanted to get a quarterback, so obviously maybe it wasn't that good. But they had LaDainian Tomlinson, who was a great running back, Hall of Fame running back. And then they go, well, you can't tell the story, or you could tell the story without that guy. So I don't understand when you talk about the story. I can't tell the NFL story without David Tyree. Anybody who thinks David Tyree, and shout out to him, and nice career in the NFL, a guy probably making advertising money to this day off that catch, and rightfully so. He should cash out whatever he did. He earned it. But nobody in the right mind thinks David Tyree is a Hall of Famer. Nobody who has a football acumen thinks he's a Hall of Famer. Same thing with like the Philly specials. Nick Foles, a Hall of. You can't tell the history of the NFL without that. The '85 Bears, William Perry, like the guy was not a. He was a nice player. Nobody says he's a Hall of Fame player. But the '85 Bears, like Jim McMahon, funny guy. He's no Hall. So what does that mean? The story of the NFL. Who cares? It's stupid. It's not a stupid story. It's a great story, but nobody in their right mind goes, that's a Hall of Fame, because you can't tell the story without that. Well, you can't tell the story without Buddy Ryan. Buddy Ryan's nowhere near the Hall of Fame as a coach. Guy, interesting coach. Danny Green. Well, Danny Green had that, well, we thought they were. And we let him off the hook. Well, Danny Green, is that a Hall of Famer? Like, no, absolutely not. Jim Mora. Like, no, it's about production. So when people say like football, it's just a stupid sport the other way when it comes to the story of the game. What the flip does that even mean, the story of the game? You cannot tell me the NFL history, throughout the history of the NFL, that the story of you could say the story without the interesting Monday Night Football press conference of Dennis Green. You can't tell. No, of course you can't. And the same thing like with all these interesting stuff that happened, like Joe Horn and the phone in the end zone. Well, you could tell the story without him. No, you can't. It's a funny story. It's a great story. It's part of the league. So when people say about stories in the NFL, unanimous Hall of Famers, it's like, to me, it's the example of like a watermelon on the table. Everybody knows it's a watermelon. Everybody knows in the middle of the table it's a 7 layer cake. We're not stupid, but just like, oh yeah, you can't put it not unanimous. I mean, this is just what writers do, and they try to like say that they're the reason like we love the game. I'm not. I'm and you're gonna say, well, I'm talking now, so maybe I am. But you know, my answer to that is, yeah, maybe. But at the same time, it's like it's up to you to believe me or not. But I guarantee you one thing: when you see a pineapple in the middle of the table, it's a fact. You think it's a pineapple, and unanimous people say it's a pineapple. You ask 100 people, it's a pineapple. And you ask people in other languages, they will say in their language. Okay? So I'm just saying that it's the same thing with like Hall of Famers like Ichiro. You could argue, which I think is a stupid argument, that CC Sabathia is not a Hall of Fame. People say, oh, he was great for 10 years, he wasn't great for 15, da 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 da. Okay. But he's a Hall of Famer, so you could argue and make that case, a crazy case that he's not a Hall of Famer. But Ichiro Suzuki, nobody in the world thinks he's not a Hall of Famer. So that's my 2 cents about what is the criteria. I don't even understand it in other sports. Like basketball, people get into the Hall of Fame, maybe not unanimous, like the best like guys who you argue that are not Hall of Famers. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe like great players who are not the best players are probably unanimous. So that's my 2 cents on that. Have a great day. Um, Subscribe to my channel, and see you soon. Bye.